Hello, Malty Martinets of Marvellous Magnetism, and thank you to Michael Gorman for providing that malt mention, to the Ralphie.com channel for this malt moment, and guests. And this is Ralphie Review 907 Extras. Extras is a video where I'm not talking about a specific good quality spirit in my spirits reviews, but I'm talking a more generalised, giving a wider landscape view, which is going to hopefully, fingers crossed, help you in making your selections and spending your money so that when you do, you have better experiences rather than worse experiences. And unfortunately, there are worse experiences out there that you've got to be aware of, mindful of. We've got to negotiate the complexities of the spirits, international spirits industry, where they're producing a product in which the quality is an opinion, right? And because of this, producers can actually get away with a lot. Because if you just have competent, professionally made, potable, consumable, ethanol-based spirit, that's you fulfilled your legal obligation. If it happens to taste worse than it used to, that is really down to the perception of the customer. And it's very difficult to prove unless you go in for some very expensive chemical spectral analysis. Anyway, what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to introduce some whiskies and another spirit, which I've come across in the year 2021, which I'm going to recommend you look out for in the year 2022, because it's going to be a difficult year for many companies as they struggle to establish themselves and sell their product. And the ones that succeed are the ones that are focusing on originality and quality of smell and taste, and the integrity of the presentation of that smell and taste, and the honesty of their productivity, the honesty of their brand. Whether they are being even-handed with the customers or whether they're being a little bit greedy, and it starts to show now and again. I tend to avoid these sort of brands myself. Occasionally I buy from them, but it's just the way it is. Customer beware, customer take care. Which is why, of course, you're going online, you're doing your research, and you're discovering what some jaded old hack thinks of various brands and why he's recommending them. Let's kick off. We have the bag of beautiful things. And I'm going to start off with one that you would probably expect me to be introducing to you. It's Ardnamurchan Distillery. And at this point, I would add that Ardnamurchan has featured prominently in the OSWAs, the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, which kicked off in 2021. Maltmates, you will find a link down below. Go and check it out. All the whiskies mentioned are the collective opinion of online video commentators, as then voted for by the online whisky community, the wide, diverse international community. And it's literally a who's who list of the sort of whiskies that you should be looking at buying if you want to invest in the quality of smell and taste. And the reason I'm mentioning Ardnamurchan is because this is an offshoot of Adelphi Independent Bottlers. And the thing about Adelphi, and I've known Adelphi as a company going back decades, they've always focused on bottling decent stuff. Sure, their prices have jumped up in the last few years, but hey, if the quality's there, then they can do that. So I'm not judging them for that. I'm delighted for their success, and I wish them well. Although, having said that, I don't buy so many Adelphi bottlings these days because of the price, but that's my decision. But Ardnamurchan is the most westerly mainland distillery in Scotland now. It's a small distillery, and the people who own it and have set it up have considerable experience and very good contacts in the whisky industry, which means that when they hit the ground, they're hitting the ground running and they're getting it right from the very start. They're not having to find their way for a few years and make a few mistakes before they start to produce some good liquor. Ardnamurchan are focusing on integrity bottlings, 46%. And it says on the label, unchill filtered, natural colour. I haven't opened this bottle yet because I've got another bottle open. The one thing I would say is that I like good, clear, unambiguous age statements. I like open transparency. All credit to Ardnamurchan, they're using QR codes and all the rest of it to provide transparency. It's a very communicative distillery, so should you contact them, you will get a response from someone who knows what they're talking about. And I recommend that you look out for Ardnamurchan. In 2022, they are producing now a more heavily peated version, which is going to be also very, very good. And importantly, having done my homework, I'm aware that they are sourcing good quality casks. Good quality casks only ever, without exception, produce good quality whisky. The next distillery I want to flag up to you is Niconian. Niconian, single malt Scotch whisky, organic, and very small distillery, 46%. Small batch. An intriguing little distillery. I think they could provide just a little bit extra in terms of information. Non-chill filtered, that's helpful. But I'm looking around the label for natural colour, and frankly, even though I'm rechecking, having already checked, I'm not seeing it. What's important with this bottling here is it's organic. And this is something which is considered a bit of a novelty with Scotch whisky, is why bother producing organic whisky? And the simple reason is that organic cereal, in this instance malted barley, tends to be slower growing. It's not a generic macro crop which is influenced by fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides and all the rest of it, which is just real life. So I'm not particularly criticising that, but when you've got an organic version of a whisky, it's not using generic barley strains, and as such the yield of flavour is likely to be higher and the yield of alcohol is likely to be slightly lower. This is not always the case. However, I have done some research. I've spoken to a biochemist, and it is generally the case. The other thing about Niconian, small distillery, very small distillery, with people who have a very clear vision about what they want to do and how they go about it. This is one of these little contemporary distilleries that they're quite bold in their presentation. They're standing out as a result of it. I haven't heard a bad word said yet about their whisky, although I have heard it say that it's a little bit on the young side. Fair play. That can only improve with time. But particularly those who are looking at the family of small distilleries which are appearing in the Scotch whisky scene, the diversity and character of these distilleries is something which is quite important, and Niconian has bags of that. Next is not a new distillery, but it is an old distillery which is in the process of refreshing itself. Bladnoch. I'm going to give Bladnoch a mention here because my experience is that as a young whisky, 8, 9, 10 years old, when it's spirit driven, there's a savoury side to it which is quite herbaceous and very, very distinctive. This is when Bladnoch is actually becoming Irish in style. And given Bladnoch's close proximity to Ireland, this is geographically easily attained. So have a look on your Google Maps or whatever you want to use and look at the location of a distillery to give you an idea of what it does and what it can do. Old Bladnochs are often overlooked and underrated simply because lowland whisky tends to get very complex with age, but there's not a lot of old lowland whiskies about. You got them from St Magdalen, good example. You got them occasionally from Auchentoshan, and some really old ones from Glenkinchie. That's the one. And they're all really good whiskies, actually. Really, really good. Because they're delicate. The Lowland style is delicate. And that delicacy becomes far more expressive over time with underactive casks. It goes the distance wonderfully well. So this is an old distillery which is under new ownership. It's reinventing itself. And therefore, you should kind of re-examine it. Another example would be, let's see what happens with Rosebank. Rosebank is still very much work in progress, but we are keeping an eye on it. I don't know if much is going to happen in 2022. It'll be a few years' time before we see much there. But my final bottle that I want to bring out to you is not a Scotch whisky. It's rum. It's Foursquare rum from Barbados. The rum scene is really opening up more confidently for what is a very conservative industry. Even amongst the spirit makers, rum is so conservative. You know, you get it one way and that's it. As a result of which, you know, when you see yet another fine rum just bottled at 40% or even worse, 38%, in an overblown fancy bottle, and it just tastes like raisin juice or prune juice with alcohol, because it's simply too old. You quickly get bored. So it's very good to see a particular distillery. One distillery is all we need to form the benchmark, which is breaking the set and actually producing and bottling rum for a Scotch whisky drinker, for the international spirits drinker who is spoiled for choice and are looking for one or two bottles in their collection which are different from the rest. So different, they're actually made from different ingredients. It's as simple as that. Now, I would conclude by saying there's other distilleries that I can't show you a bottle because I've not bought a bottle yet and I wasn't able to buy a bottle yet. Isle of Raasay, still relatively young. It's had its first bottling now, but it's still quite young. But I give it just a couple of years, it's going to be very, very tasty indeed. Exciting little distillery, great energy about it, and it's got, frankly, one of the most stunning locations of any distillery in the whole of Scotland. Also, look out for Clydeside, right in the heart of Glasgow. A lot of experience behind that distillery. They've just brought out their first bottling recently, and I'm still on the lookout for it. But I'm in no rush because the first bottlings, I want to see how they bed down. I don't want to be the first just to be the first. So you won't see me reviewing whiskies that are only just released because everybody's reviewing them at that point. I tend to give it a few months, even a year or two, and then I'll say, right, now I'll turn my attention to this distillery because what they're bottling will be older. I'm looking for the age statement. I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care that it's not necessary. Yes, for me, it's my money. It's my money that's buying this stuff. It matters to me. It's a very important part of integrity. It's disclosure. Tell us what's in the bottle. Share. Let me understand what I'm tasting here. Give me an age statement. That will tell me all about the casks. 46%, unchill filtered, natural colour. Do you know, it doesn't matter any spirit in the world. Those are the first four things I'm looking at. before I even start to make a purchase decision. And frankly, you should too. If it's bourbon, yeah, 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years. Yeah, why not have an age statement? If it's straight, sure, you know what age it is, but at the same time, you still got to do calculations and try and work it out. At this time, we just want simple transparency. If it's mezcal, sure, it's, three months rested. That's fine. It's something to go on. And white spirit improves so much for being rested prior to bottling, whether it be in stainless steel tanks or in large glass vessels. It makes a huge difference. Ask the people who make it. I'm Ralphie. I hope you found this useful. Final word before I go. If you're finding Foursquare too expensive or difficult to find, in this particular version, cask strength, what do they call it? Private cask selection. Private class, that's what it is. The private cask selection. Spread your net a little bit, because Foursquare also bottle as Dourley's. And Dourley's XO and 14-year-old, lower bottling strength, but very good rums. Also, never forget the independent bottlers. The independent bottlers tend to be overlooked because it takes more work to discover the hidden gems that can be found from independent bottlers. You've got to do your homework because it's more risky, because the quality of what they bottle varies. Understand that. The skill is to take the time and make the time to do your private detective work before you commit the money you spend on whatever you're going to buy. I would conclude now by saying that I'm showing some exciting distilleries that I'm looking at for 2022, but there will be bottling suddenly appear from out the blue, and I know that I better move fast if I want to buy a bottle. But I can't tell you about them because I'll only know about them myself when they happen. And this is what you might want to do yourself, is just use the internet to set up and follow certain sites and certain shops and build up a rapport. Get onto your Reddit group and find out what's being talked about. What's the conversation? Because often you find with the group is people are looking one direction and suddenly a whiskey or a rum or a brandy or a cognac will pop up completely unannounced, and it gets missed and it gets overlooked, and you can be the first to jump in and get a bottle at a reasonable price. I'm Ralphie. I hope you find this helpful, and join me again shortly where I'll be reviewing something, not quite sure what, not even thought about it, but hey, we're on to it. Bye.